What up? What up?
Hi, Jahida.
Oh, boo.
How you doing?
Girl, I can't wait for school to start, but then I don't know. Things are looking kind of suspect because last mandate. So I don't know. I just need these kids to go back to school because I'm tired.
I feel you. It's
So
crazy out here.
guys, so Tati is a member of the Southern Roxbury Community Partnership. She has been going hard with us, demonstrating. She also has lived experience in this space because she is a daughter of a parent who is navigating addiction. And most importantly, she brings a whole different level of this conversation about navigating systems while her parent was navigating addiction. And so Tati is doing some real dope work addressing the DCF component of this conversation. Man, yo, I'm like seeing her with the bullhorn. I was like, yeah.
Girl, I was like, I'm already loudmouth as it is.
Right. So, T, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about the why and talk to us.
Okay, so hi everyone. So as you see on my Facebook, my name is Tatiana Lugo because that's my mom's last name. But my name is Tatiana Rodriguez, hyphenated Lugo. And I grew up most of my life in Boston. I now reside in Cambridge, but my heart is gonna always be in Boston because that is where a lot of my passion and just there's a lot of need for services, especially in this younger population, with all these children and then everything going on with COVID and all these different like restrictions and different laws happening and parents not being able to see their kids. Like there's just so much happening that I feel as though I need to stand up and speak from a person with lived experience. There's nothing like actually going through it yourself. And the fact that I just want to first start off and say, because of people like you, Jahida, it actually gave me that push. You, Domingo, women from Families of Justice is Healing, that has been supporting me throughout like my whole process with, my child and what I'm dealing with. So all those things kind of conflicting together, my mom navigating the system and me being a former foster child, all these things have a big impact on why I chose to pick up this torch and confront these systems that are really set up to, it's a setup from the beginning for us to feel. As you know, DCF is a part of the pipeline to prison pathway.
Right.
Statistically, kids that are in foster care are more likely to end up in prison.
And on the mile.
And on the mile.
On the mile.
It's so like if you have, and by the way, if you haven't watched the documentary, The 13th, I suggest that you watch it because it really breaks down the whole Jim Crow era and how we're still, people think that we're not living it today, but we are still like, it's a formal modern day slavery, all of these systems. And it's all a money scheme when it really comes down to it, just like Method Mayo being a money scheme and, people profiting off of people's pain. People are profiting off of our children's pain, and these are children that, like for me, for instance, I remember ending up in the system and I'm getting put in the back of a cruiser as if I did something wrong to go to a group home, and it's like, are you preparing me to go to something? Like, are you making this a normal for me? So that, like, I didn't start to realize that until I started to get older and really, really like educate myself and I shout out to Roxbury Community College. They have a great African American Studies, Black Studies course, which opened up my eyes to a lot of things that these schools don't have in place.
Right.
I didn't know about really what I thought Christopher Columbus was a hero, and I thought he found the United States.
Cancel that.
Come to find out, he was the biggest bully. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so
gentrifier, like,
yeah, a gentrifier, and that's what's taking place now is genocide. Like, you're taking our kids. You're not providing us with the resources that we need to prevent us from entering these systems. In fact, you're actually setting us up, starting from schools, from BPS, not to mention, and I work for BPS, God forgive me, but there's a lot of flaws. And that's why I'm there, to be that person to make the difference and to educate people on, you know, when you file a 51A on a child, you know what that does.
No.
Do you know the bigger picture? And a lot of people don't, because we're brainwashed to believe that we're doing the right thing and we're mandated reporters. But have you done the step 1, step 2? Have you spoke to that family? Have you asked that family if they need resources? Have you asked that family if they need food, if they need clothes, if they need a childcare voucher?
Intervention. So, Tati, I'm thinking, right, because I remember when I first met you at Camp Harbor View, whatever, right?
Yeah.
You already came into space. I can tell there was something really different about you. So let's take a few steps back. As a child who was navigating the system, because your mom in your family was navigating her, you know, her demons and the things that she needed to do with. While you was in this space navigating the system, did you feel that the system prepared you or offered you social and emotional support to kind of get you to be, you know, integrated into the community, to kind of get you into a space of like releasing your trauma? Or you like,
it was impossible. So it was nearly impossible to get me used to navigating, because number one, my social worker had way too many cases, number one.
Boom.
Number two, I had so many social workers that I can't even remember all of them. Okay. So I was taught at a very young age to trust people that I do not know, and to just go in the car with them and go to the next placement. And that is not okay. Psychologically, with studying psychology, when I think it's really sickening the way that this is designed, and the fact that there's been studies and statistics showing that this is not good. It's not good. The inconsistency, a child that is already coming from a traumatic situation, okay? Not to say my mother, she did the best that she could do. And I can say I give my mother 100%. Like, my mother was a great mother. That I want to make that clear. My mother was a great mother. And the reason why I can say that now is because she did the best that she could with the tools that she had. And she did what she needed to do to make sure I got what I needed. And she still does till this day, right? But the problem is that the system, the way that they're treating a person's children, it's like, I'm just another case. I'm a caseload. I'm not, you're not thinking about the stability, keeping me in one place so that I can flourish and focus on school. I was a honor roll student. When I got in the system, I started cutting up. I failed my freshman year. I was skipping school. I was jumping from, I went to how many different high schools? Cambridge, Somerville, Southie, and Madison. 4 different high schools, which I ended up graduating from Madison. But in my freshman year, I went to 4 different high schools. How can I maintain my grades and focus on school and education when I'm constantly being bounced from house to house and place to place? You understand what I'm saying? So that, for me, that experience, the lack of compassion with social workers, the attention that they gave to me, I had to navigate the system myself. I had to ask questions and advocate for myself at a young age. And a lot of people say, wow, you're so strong, Tati. I had no choice. I had to fight for my life. And luckily, I had the strength and the resilience to continue to fight and to continue to not take no for an answer and ask questions. And that's one thing that my family says, like, I've always asked questions. And I think that helped me, but a lot of people don't have those tools, you know? And another part of that is my my faith, my walk with God. And I can say, and the one of the things that I did get from DCF was meeting my foster parents, my last foster parents, that I can tell you, like, they're a part of the reason why my faith is so strong today. And that no matter what I go through, I hold on to what they taught me. Okay. This family, like, really, and they were sent from God, because all the other places that I was and the way that I saw my other friends and group homes being treated by their social worker, by their foster parents, and even foster parents that I went to live with or I was in respite with, I was like, wow, I am very blessed. And I feel like because of that today, I have to stand up and fight for those people that don't have a voice, that don't have the skills to advocate for themselves, and that are caught in their trauma and pain. Because what ends up happening is these youth end up self-medicating and not doing or they'll just go to therapy because they just want to, because this is a part of the plan that they have to do. But are we seeing therapists that look like us? Are we really connecting? Are we really sharing those deep secrets and those deep traumas that we dealt with? A lot of us weren't. And for a while, I wasn't because I couldn't connect. And that's why I'm here today. That's why I am starting this movement with a bunch of community members that, have dealt with the similar experiences, and the stories are too much the same. It's just the same story over and over, and something's got to give. Enough is enough. DCF has zero accountability. Okay. They tell, how is it that they tell police officers what to do and judges to do? You know what I'm saying? That's too much unaccountable power. And then to top it off, these social workers have qualified immunity when we're trying to push for police officers to, not have that qualified immunity. So social workers are exempt when you're dealing with family. Family is the most important thing in this world. If you attack a family and you break a family, like how they did back in the Jim Crow days, when slavery ended, but it really didn't, because now you have these Black men trying to apply for work and they can't because they're already being profiled. They're giving the jobs to the women. And what happens? The man is supposed to be the head of the house based off of this United States of America. We're built off of Christianity. Biblically, the man is the head of the household. And I think that's in every religion. I don't even think it's in Christianity. The man is the head. So if you break down the head, then what happens to the neck? You know what I'm saying? It starts to shatter.
Right. And I worked for DCF for a short period of time. And I can honestly tell you that was one job that I didn't even get my 2-week notice. I was like, I'm off this. I can't. First of all, you see how my energy is. I can't, it was too much for my soul. If it would have been up to me, I would have bought a house and I would have adopted plenty of kids, right? It was mentally exhausting. But to what you were saying, I remember starting as a new social worker, doing the training, and the training, at least back then, the training was very basic, right? You had people who came from, very partnered organizations that did the training on many things. I think it was like a 2-day, 2 to 3 day thing, whatever. I can't even remember because it was so long ago. But I will never forget that as a new social worker, haven't been in this space for a long time, and the amount of cases that were given to me was alarming. And most importantly, a case that was already literally in a space of removal. And they handed me a case, and that's the reason why I'm not there. They handed me a case of a family who was bouncing around, whatever the case may be. I'm not sure if it was to avoid removal, whatever. But the fact that they handed me a case as someone who was not even there 3 months, to do such a major removal without me even getting to know the family, trying to stabilize the family, build a relationship with the kids, because what a lot of people don't understand, when you are a DCF social worker, you have to build relationships with the parents. If there are 2 parents, and if the other parent is not in that household, you got to talk to the other parent, right? You got to build a trust and trust with the children, which is important, right? If the children are in school or receiving services, you have to work in partnership with the schools, providers that are in place, right? Not to mention that if the children are, health, if there's health doctors, you got to build relationships with those individuals. And I just remember, like, this is a lot. Like, I just started here again. Not that I didn't know what I signed up for, but for me, it was just like
it's an overload.
And not to mention that if a family has, let's say, 6 kids, 6 different schools, I'm bouncing from different schools to schools. I'm bouncing around talking to different providers, right? And if another parent, is in another, thing, like, let's say, even I remember having to drive to Rhode Island and places like that to meet with parents, right? And dealing with all of that, and in addition to having over 10 cases and having to service every individual that is listed in the documents, right? Like, it was a lot. It was a lot. And it was one job that I'm like, this don't make no sense. You know what I mean? Like, it's just too much.
And that comes up from the higher ups. What's going on with all this money? Like, why is it that there's not more social workers? You know what I'm saying? Like, if that's the case, like, although I don't agree with the system, to be honest, I would love to see it dismantled and have a community oversight, and just because we can take care of ourselves. Like, we have a lot of especially like right now, being a part of Families for Justice is Healing. Like, I see that if we come together as a community, we can absolutely survive. You know what I'm saying? But I know that's very far reach. So just to say this, I want to make it clear. I'm not our movement is not specifically attacking social workers, because we understand that it's coming from up here. It's a political level, and but there are DCF workers that are in it for the wrong reasons also, and don't use, like, how you realize, like, this is too much. I'm not going to be able to give it my 100%. Let me just step back. But then, and I understand some people, this can be their bread and butter, you know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, this is a family. These are children's lives. You can make one false move and ruin their lives forever. People's been killed in their care. People's been raped. You're removing them from one trauma to put them in another trauma or more trauma. And I can remember, oh my gosh, I remember clearly when I had to go to the group home. I remember. So first of all, I didn't want to go. I ran away first, okay, because of all the stuff that I already heard. Yeah, like, I already heard, like, all the horror stories, and I was like, listen, I'd rather deal with what I'm dealing with at home. I'm eating right. I'm dressed right. My mother, like, this is minor. When I look back, I was much better staying with my mother. Besides the fact that I encountered such wonderful foster parents, but I was better off with the trauma, staying where I was at, But I say that to say, yes, Dawn, reimagining our communities, and that's exactly what we need to be conversating about. Reimagining DCF and what DCF looks like, and we should have peer training by people that are experienced with lived experiences, because nobody knows what we need but us. Look at me. I was supposed to end up somewhere else. Statistically, I was supposed to be in prison right now or dead.
Right.
Okay. And by the mercy of God that I'm here. You know what I'm saying? But I remember saying And my friends, if these, first of all, when I first went to the group home, I was angry. I was not playing. It wasn't until I realized that I wasn't getting phone calls, that I wasn't being able to see my family, that I had to change my attitude. But I was on defense mode, okay? And I was like, if I get a foster parents, that if somebody ever tries to touch me, I swear for you, like, that's when all hell's gonna break loose. It's a wrap, you know? And that's just sad that I had to come into the system already feeling that way. That makes you question what is the Department of Children and Services doing right? Please show me statistics. And we also are asking for valid statistics, because if you look at the statistics, that's bullshit. When you look at what the disproportionality, yes, you can see the disproportionality of the removal of the Black and Brown and the Latino children's being taken out at a bigger rate than what the population is, which is crazy, but it's not on point 100%. There's some stuff missing there. And the fact that we remove children in Massachusetts 60% faster, at a faster rate than any other jurisdiction in this country, goes to show that we have a problem right here in our backyards in Boston, Massachusetts. And to everyone here that says, oh, DCF helps. I remember bumping into some people when I was handing out flyers like, wow, I have a friend that works for DCF. It's not about your friend. It's about the policies that are in place.
Right.
Why is it that you can remove, there's laws that you can remove a child for no reason? So that means if my DCF, let's say if I somehow have DCF involved in my life and my DCF worker just doesn't like my attitude and my assertiveness, or maybe biased because I was in the system and, you know, they have this preconceived notions about kids that were in the system, she could just decide to take my child. That's
a lot of power.
Too much power.
Right.
Way too much. And it's different if you were, you know, doing the right thing with it, but it's not even trusted. And then I don't know if you listened to the protests, but I learned some interesting things from Families Against Illegal Kidnapping, which are from Western Mass, which we collab with the Western Mass. So we have Family Matters of Western Mass and Family Matters of Boston, and we collab because there's power in the people, you know. But she had brought up an interesting statistic as far as the AFTA Act, where there's funds for adoption. So there's incentives to adopt children. But DCF, supposedly, the goal is reunification. So why are we not incentivizing reunification?
All right. When I was in DCF, there's also, for those children who stayed in the system, right, that weren't reunified.
Yes, Marla, way too much power.
Yeah, that wasn't reunified with their families. There was also, you know, accessibilities to support individuals to get into like supportive housing, to try to get them into apartments, you know, once they aged out, you know, funding for like college related stuff. But, you know, when I was there, right, from the youth, because I had some youth in my caseload, and I can say that some of the youth were like, I didn't get that help, you know what I mean, whatever. I remember having to come out of my own pocket to feed individuals while I'm driving individuals to doctor's appointments and driving individuals to court cases, you know what I'm saying? Like I was coming out of my pocket to feed me and, you know, whoever I was assisting, whether it was a parent or a child at that time. I remember, you know, doing a lot of like what I kind of felt more case management than anything, right? Like, you know, doing housing related stuff. And, you know, I can't, I'm going to keep it real. I can't disagree with you on a sense, but on a social worker's perspective, what I can tell you is there is too much of a heavy load on social workers to actually even produce the work that they want social workers to do. I've met a lot of amazing social workers.
I have too.
Who love what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have like any field? Do we have some jaded ones that you're like, yo, just quit, like just like, move on, like, you know what I'm saying? You got jaded by the system, like move on. And there's just some people there for a paycheck, like any other field. But I can't disagree with you. I have to say that was, again, one of the jobs that I did not care to give a 2-week notice for.
And now that you brought up that resources, Jahida, because that's big. And it makes sense. It goes to another question, because it's not that, like, I don't want anyone to misunderstand. I'm not attacking social workers. You know, other members in the group may feel like, well, you know, one made the whole bunch look bad, but I'm not that type of person. Okay, I deal with you on a, you know, individual basis, and it just goes to show, once again, the fact that I had to advocate for me to get money for a laptop while I was in college. Okay. And in order to receive the funding, I signed myself back in. I don't know the technical term, but I signed myself back into DCF just to have that assistant in transition into adulthood, because I was only 17 when I went into independent living, and I had a roommate. And then I had to pay my own bills. And it was just like, oh, you're free, do what you want. And I was like, not here. Like, you're not just going to throw me off like that. And I'm going to keep advocating for myself. And luckily, I had a great worker that was from Deer. Her name is Tope. She and I also had a good DCF worker. Her name was Jennifer. I'll never forget those two people, because they literally like told me what was available for me, especially having that Deer worker. And Deer is not I'm guessing it's contracted by DCF, but that's what we need, more community oversight, like more, you know, off DCF, like off their time, because I felt like I received way more knowledge having that extra social worker. And the fact that I felt like I had to fight to get these funds that were actually available, you know, it just goes to show, what do you not want me to apply for the funds? Are you trying to, like, you know, make it seem as if I don't qualify for the funds because what's going on with the money? Like, what?
I'll tell you like this. It wasn't something that they wanted you to promote.
No.
Let's put it like that, right?
Absolutely not.
I found out about those critical services and supports later in the game, you know, and it was like you, like talking to people that I had to partner with. There were outside agencies who were, you know, providers who actually informed me. It wasn't something that I learned in the training while I was there. I'll keep it real with you. So it's like most things, they're not going to promote certain things that allows them to come out of their pocket. And then, and what a lot of people don't know, that DCF does have funds to also pay for child care services. So for those families that don't have, who are experiencing whatever it is that they're experiencing, DCF social workers want to put on part of their care plan that they have to seek employment and hold employment. DCF does have the ability to give people child care vouchers, right? If you're not getting the EEC or whatever it is, child care, they can give you those things. But
they do.
While I was there, it wasn't something, you know,
that was promoted.
Right. And then when I would ask for those things, like some people would look at me like, you're doing too much. And I'm like, no, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, right? Because the whole point of my role is to prevent removals and to prevent having to go sit downtown filing all this paperwork, you know what I mean? And really stabilize the family. That was my role. So I'm confused. Like, either you're going to help me or you're not going to help me, because, you know, these are the things that have to happen in order for me to, first of all, do my job effectively. Because there were times that I would sit and do my visits and was uncomfortable, because I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like, you know, I shouldn't be showing up here if I know that there is a deficit, or, you know, for those families that weren't getting food stamps or whatever the case may be, you know, there should be like for those who are foster parents too, you know, that may not qualify them for those services, to have access to getting additional monies to feed, you know, their foster children. And also, not even, now that I'm a little head over here, I never even thought about the disability part of this conversation for those children who had disabilities, that were picky eaters. So there's so much stuff that, for me, it was a lot to do. And I've always said it, that job was hard to do with the limited of resources given to social workers to actually do their job. Because
so I'm glad
I have to get compensated after I'm driving to and from court hearings, doctor's appointments, special education meetings, you know what I'm saying, or whatever the case, and then get compensated later when probably I'm maxing out my credit card to put gas in a car. Like, these are the things that should be worked out if you want people to work in this space and actually do the job effectively without the other burdens of saying, oh man, I got to troop it to Rhode Island and you only giving me 3 cents a mile to drive to Rhode Island. You know what I mean? Like,
you just said a lot, Jahida. I'm glad that you mentioned 2 things. The food part. So let me tell you a little story. So, and I'll get back to the childcare voucher because I have something else to say about that. So, can you believe that I had a foster mom that would literally, and now that you say the food thing, I can kind of, well, listen to this. So she had special food for her kid, name brand food for her kids. And the 2 foster kids that was in the house, me and this younger girl, which, not to mention, she had us in the same room, and she had a daughter the same age as the foster child, which was like 8. I was like 16 at the time. Inappropriate. I'm having other conversations, privacy, different things going on with my body. It was more appropriate for you to put her over there. But no, since we were foster kids, you put us in the same room. But she would buy us Save-A-Lot food in her kid's name brand.
Yeah.
So that's just another issue when you remove a child from their family. It's like there's so many pieces to like, like. So you think you did better for me by putting me here? Is it? Do you think so? And then another thing to mention, how you mentioned the childcare vouchers. So yeah, that's all fun and dandy that they can give you a childcare voucher once your case is supported. So let's remember what happens.
And if it's supported, you're right. Right.
Let's remember what happens before a case gets. So what should be happening and is not happening, it shouldn't even get to the point where the case got supported. If DCF had funds in place for preventative services, too many times I hear, oh, your case has to be supported in order to have access to these resources.
Right.
Why? I'm a single mom. I'm thriving. I'm going to school. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm working. I'm going to school. So you mean to tell me I have to support a 51A? Do you know how bad that looks for my record? Do you know how bad that would interfere with my career, being that I'm in child psychology? Do you know how bad that would be? So you're telling me I have to get a case supported? That doesn't make any sense. And now, since we're on the topic, another issue that we're having with DCF is right now there's a bill that I want to say, yeah, I spoke at a hearing. I testified at a hearing on a bill. I can't remember. I want to say it's H377. I'm not sure exactly what the bill is, but I know that it was for DCF in Massachusetts to apply for these readily available funds that are provided federally. So there's funds available to all 51, 52 states of the United States in order to go towards preventative services. Why are we not applying for it, Massachusetts?
It's to me, DCF can do a lot of magical things, but I think it's like most social service entities. They are overly swamped with having to serve massive amount of people with basically crumbs. And I'm gonna tell y'all newsflash, I don't know what the pay scale is now, but the pay scale back then was horrible. It was like and for a job that is emotionally, like, it's emotionally overwhelming, and there's no one that can work in that space that cannot say that they could go home and sleep okay when you're doing a DCF investigation and you hear some of these horror stories, right? And not mentioning the part about what does that do to social workers as well, the mental component and the trauma that the person who's supposed to help you with your trauma, who's supposed to protect you from trauma, is also dealing with their own stuff. So it's like we're not realizing that these systems, like, they just don't work. They're not working because we are in 2021 and we're in a whole different space than when we were when these systems were created. And I think that, I think the work is dope. I'm so happy that somebody finally decided to do this level of work. And because DCF, again, like, that was one job. And I always say this, it was one job that mentally was too much for me and my type of energy. It was exhausting. And I commend you in this work. You know what I mean? Like, that was dope. I hope people hear you and they really, like, reimagine DCF. I don't know if there's more that you want to say about, like, the statistics. And
so first of all, I want to say you inspired me too. Thank you too, and to everybody else that inspired me. Yeah. So actually, I wanted to read some things before we got off of here. Can you still see me right now?
Yeah, go ahead, do your thing.
Okay, because I'm looking at. So, okay, hold on 1 second.
Don't worry, do your thing.
Yeah. So
find the bill, see if I could drop it in the link so people could read it.
Okay. Let me see.
Kathy's responding to Gina. Yeah, it's been a sad thing, man. Like, there's kids that have been taken away from their home. They might have experienced something like emotional abuse, right, from a parent who was doing substances and then ended up being removed and going to a foster placement where they were molested, right? And that's hard. And those things, those situations are very difficult to deal with. And they're real people, whether people want to hear it or not, they're real. And they are, and unfortunately in today's society, there are foster parents who are equally as abusive, right? They definitely make children who are navigating systems feel totally different and out of place in their own families, right? Like, they get paid. And then the flip side to that is, a lot of foster parents also don't get paid enough to do that too. This foster, you have foster parents who have to work, right? Who are trying to provide roof over their heads and feed their own families as well, while also trying to do a good deed, right? And they're not even giving enough money to pay enough of their bills either. And they're tasked with making sure that a child that they take in has to make sure that their health is okay. So making sure they're taking you to, your physicals, and making sure that if you get sick, you're, not all social workers are sitting in the ER till 2-3 o'clock in the morning with a foster child. There's foster parents that do that too. So overall, just the whole system, it's just not like, it's not designed to really lessen the stressors, you know what I mean, on anybody, whether it's the parents and the families navigating the system or those who are in the system. Like, it's too much. It is.
And even right now, it's really sad too, like with the whole COVID situation, like parents haven't been able to see their children. I remember even in my situation, I had to see my child over Zoom, and I think that's so, like, it's so wrong that when the mask mandate was lifted, kids still weren't allowed to see their parents in person, so it's just so many things and so many issues and biases across the board, and the system just needs to be reimagined, and we need to stop trying to run from the conversation and really sit down at a table and come to a resolution as what direction do we want our children are our future, you know what I'm saying? What direction do we want to go in? So really quick, let me just share with you guys what we're asking and what bills we are supporting.
Right. Do your thing.
So we are against expansion of mandated reporting, and some of us testified at the hearing, like I said. So we're against the expansion based, off the fact that, Black and brown children are being disproportionately removed and disproportionately represented in the system, right? As in many systems. We are for getting preventative services to the community through the Family First Prevention Act, which I stated earlier, and some of us testified at that hearing also. We have a Family Bill of Rights we want the state to uphold. Why don't we have a Family Bill of Rights? You know what I'm saying? Family is the most important thing. We believe that DCF needs broader community oversight, as I stated before. We want to be present at all meetings at DCF that concern our families. Nothing about us should be done without us.
That's right.
We want peer mentors at DCF. So we would like to do peer training to social workers, because a lot of the times what ends up happening is social workers get all these cases and they get overloaded with cases and investigations that they want to close these investigations quick, or they want to make assumptions because one parent is accusing the other. But there just needs to be more in-depth training on what our culture looks like, right, what the community looks like. Because also we do have people that are working in these places that don't have any idea about our cultures. I don't care how much cultural diverse training of hours you got. If it's not from us, it shouldn't be. It should not be. It needs to be from us, so you can understand that what discipline looks like to me and what it looks like to you could be different, but help me to understand how it works here. If I'm an immigrant coming from a different country, discipline could look different over there, and it doesn't mean that we love our kids any less than here, but show me how that's done. You know what I'm saying? Show me what it looks like here and what I need, how it should be, and give me access to those preventative services, right? Then we want an end to federal law, AFSPA, which I mentioned earlier, which says families only have so many months to recover and work with DCF before the department moves to terminate parental rights and have kids adopted. This is where we say families against legal kidnapping. That's crazy. It's bizarre. And even when a primary caretaker goes to prison, it's like all these things, like there's so many aspects. So then there are a bunch of bills going through the State House right now that would help families dealing with DCF. We at Family Matters Boston have not voted on supporting each one yet, but we are going to meet about that very soon. One bill that stands out is H3777. It's about the family time parents and kids get when the kids are taken by DCF. Right now, the default is to have all parents and time supervised and 1 hour per week. This would switch the default to unsupervised time and at least 2 hours per week, and DCF would have to prove in court that frequent visitation is harmful to the child. This is to help minimize the trauma on kids of the separation from their parents, which is major. Nobody wants to talk about that. People want to think, oh, we're coming and we're saving. But regardless of the situation and regardless of the traumas, these kids have an attachment and a bond to their families. Right. Regardless of what you think their best interest is. DCF does not appear to value the damage it is doing to children separating from their parents at such a rate. The removals and masks are at a rate of 60% higher than national average. And once children are in DCF care, they are more likely to experience incarceration. DCF is a part of the cradle to prison pipeline, as I stated. Black and brown children are disproportionately represented in DCF care. We need better data about disparities. We need DCF to try race bias removals. This is something I forgot to talk about, where they bring a case to a group of child protection people inside DCF, and they take out all identifying information regarding neighborhood or ethnicity or race or name, and then they make recommendations based on the facts. Where race blind removals have been tried other places in the US, they have reduced the rate at which Black and brown families are separated. This proves these systems have bias, and DCF en masse hasn't taken any steps at all to address these disparities. Families need support, not policing and punishment. We want to grow our numbers, taking part in direct action and contacting legislators. Enough is enough. DCF needs community oversight and legislative action now. And this is why I'm here and I'm talking to you.
Oh, yes. So where can the people find you to follow your group? Because I see that Kathy just dropped this bomb, which is pretty interesting. And maybe Kathy can kind of help you guys do some of this work, because Kathy's definitely been part of SEROXBURY. She definitely comments. She's shared a lot of like gems. She's definitely been very instrumental in just like, you know, communicating and sharing ideas in the group and just engaging. And I think that Kathy really comes into the space with a lot of great info. So Kathy's saying the court is ending parenting classes I teach. So much for preventative services. And that's pretty alarming if you know, we keep talking about these sound bites about trauma-informed classrooms and trauma supports, and, you know, and yet we continue to defund and remove certain levels of services that are instrumental in stabilizing families. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it makes sense, because now when I think about it, you know, for children that were navigating addiction, right? We removed those children, and many children ended up staying in the system for so long. But it all makes sense, because if parents are losing their parental rights after they're unable to do what is demanded of them, especially in the addiction world, right? It makes sense, because first of all, there's not enough beds everywhere in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We're seeing the results of methadone mouth. There isn't just enough services. So then guess what? Kids end up staying in the system because you want a parent to go get into detox, but there's not enough beds for them.
So, and that's a very big component. But another component to that is that I forgot to mention is, so what about before the child? So sometimes there's family that realizes that their family member should not have the child because of drug issues, but can't take the responsibility because DCF and require you to have a supported case, and also they want you to quickly adopt the child so that they're not financially responsible or obligated. Right. So how about we reimagine that and make this money go to preventative services, where people can voluntarily be like, you know what, Mom, can you please take John Doe because I can't do this, or Mom intervening, like, I'm gonna intervene. But think about all the poor families that can't do that. Number one, they can't do it because they financially cannot afford it, and right. We as a community lack a lot of resources. Right. And secondly, there's another thing that we haven't talked about. How about when my cousin has a child that, you know, she's struggling to raise and she has substance abuse issues. Mm-hmm. But now I want to take care of my little cousin, but then they do a query and a story on me.
And that's so funny, because that's what I was just thinking, because and that was one of the biggest issues I experienced as a social worker. So when mm-hmm. we were trying to avoid the removal of children and placing them with
other families and foster homes,
with individuals that they didn't know, it was really hard, especially in the Black and brown community, right? Who's already oppressed and
already has more contact with police, right. off the rip, period.
And Tati, we haven't even talked about the fact that families who live on subsidized in Section 8, right? That if you remove those children and put them into households with families who are under housing, now you're talking about, what's going to happen to them? Is their rent going to go up because now they have to have that accountable income? So there's so much to talk about. And this is why, I don't understand why we continue to use these sound bites. You know what I'm saying? Like navigating politics, because
it's not rocket science. It's common sense. If Jahida and me can sit down and chop it up like this, and this is not scripted. We had no conversation about this off record, like legit. And the fact that we're able to put our heads together and figure this thing out, why can't DCF figure it out, or these people in these high places? Because it's set up to trap us, and we must dismantle how we must dismantle these racist systems one by one, because they are not set up for us. It's disgusting.
And this one's important. What Kathy said. This was a big part that I remember hearing a lot from foster parents, right? For children who,
DCF are not often ruled out of DYS because DCF does not have the beds, but incarceration is traumatic.
Right. So there was plenty of kids that I had on my caseload that was messing around in the streets, getting locked up, So if a foster parent gets that call, you know what I mean? Like in the middle of the night, who's going to go bail that kid out, right? Who are we going to wait to, go through a whole thing? Like, I need some funds to bail this child out who's only 12, 13 years old, who got locked up for, I don't know, being in a school zone or something. I don't know, right? But we haven't even talked about that part, because part. So who pays for that, right? For children who are not, have not been given the proper tools to kind of deal with their trauma and avoid the prison system and getting in trouble because of what they're going through and whatever. That's there's just so much to unpack in this conversation, T, and I'm so proud of you that you are bringing it in real. And all I can tell you, T, is keep it real. Don't let folks come into your space, because you already know what it is. Don't let folks come into your space and give you all these amazing things or whatever. Like, there has to be action behind the work. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because sometimes, conversations like this trend, and they become part of, huge conversations, but oftentimes the process doesn't match what the work is, right? So, just protect your work, move the way that you move, do what you got to do, because this is a conversation that needs to be addressed. And, we call on our government to change systems, and the ones that they need to change are the ones that they're not changing fast.
And where is Charlie Baker? Where are you, Charlie Baker?
He don't care. He lives in Swampscott by the beach in a mansion. He could care less about.
I believe his wife is involved in a lot of DCF action too.
Yeah,
per I hear.
Right, but, and Dawn is right. We need to have more conversations about DCF.
Yes, Dawn. Dawn has an experience too, that as a grandmother, how they're trying to push for her to adopt her grandkids, like. Just so that she's
and probably not even giving her the money to do it, and not giving her the stability, and saying, I only got a 2-bedroom apartment, which means that if I adopt my grandchildren, I'm going to need a 3 or 4 bedroom apartment.
Yeah, it's ridiculous how they push you. Why are you quick to try to move for adoption? Because of the incentives. Let's incentivize family reunification. Let's incentivize that.
Right.
So I want to let you guys know where to find me before we log off. You can find me at, us, because we are community led. And I always want to make sure that it is a us thing. It's not just a me thing, because we are all affected Even if you're not affected now, you could be affected, just coming from the neighborhood that you come from. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I appreciate that. Join the Facebook group. Okay. You can join the Facebook group, Family Matters of Boston. And you could also follow us on Twitter at Fam Matters Boss, spelled FAMMATTERBOS on Twitter. And then on Instagram, you can follow us at Boston Family Matters. Okay? Right. I appreciate all of you guys listening in. I appreciate you, Jahida, for allowing me to use this platform and inform our South End and Roxbury community on what's going on, for those that are not educated and think that there's nothing wrong with DCF, or, not to say that it's the worst people, but there's more flaws than good things, and this is coming from personal experience, and there's so many more stories that I would like for you guys to hear. Make sure you keep up with us on our page. We continue to upload content to keep you guys informed on what's going on, and hopefully you can make informative decisions on who you're electing, because all these systems interact, even with mass and caste. Like, children end up in the system, you know what I'm saying? Those children, and how those children being treated when they're already coming from one traumatic situation to another. It's just all a pipeline that we need a halt to it. We need to put an end to it.
It's true. And I appreciate you, because this topic to me is real personal too, just because I work there, and that was one job that I was like, nah, this is not for me.
It's just
mentally, I can't cope. Like, I would have needed a therapist. I mean, I need a therapist now, but you know what I mean? But it's like, there's a lot that goes in behind the scenes. And if families who are navigating systems think this is difficult, imagine you being in the inside, right? In the inside, and advocating hard for families, and also kind of being like, you know what I mean? So it's
and being the outcast, because you're actually doing your job correctly. Right? You actually care, not to say that everybody doesn't, because there's good and bad ones, but you actually cared. And a lot of the times when you care about your job, it's like, nah, we need to make these numbers, we need to do this. It's more about numbers and this, and not about the profession that we're in. And when we're dealing with children, our children are non-negotiable. Our children are not for sale, and they should not be legally kidnapped. Just like the Saisha situation. If you guys haven't heard about Saisha, follow her on Instagram and listen to what she's going through. It's just nasty. Like, I don't even want to talk about it. It turns my stomach every time I think about what they're doing to us as a people, as a community, as a race, as just human beings that are great mothers and great fathers, just help us. We just need a little guidance. We need resources that are long overdue in our communities. They always say, oh, we're donating this money, but why do our communities still look the same? Why do they look the same? What are you guys promoting? Why does Methadone Mayo still look the same?
Right.
Why is it that we can't simply just get some beds? You know how many abandoned buildings there are? There's so many ways that you can go about creating change. The money is there, because you can't say the money's not there, because the money's not going towards building a bridge, is it? Because I haven't heard about. So it's like,
and if they build it, they're gonna have to renovate all that place, so it won't even open anytime soon anyway. So the question becomes, what now?
What now? And it's like, all those people, it's like an enabling system, because even people, my mom, it was enabling. It was easy for her to go somewhere and do what she did. Before, back in the days, they used to have to hide it. Right. It was harder to do it because you hid it. Now you could go to an open platform, and it's just profiting off of our pain once again.
Right.
Enough is enough.
So, all right, guys, again, make sure y'all follow Family Matters of Boston, Fam Matters Boss on Twitter. Please join her Facebook group. So, Kathy, you're making a lot of great comments. Please join this movement. Help.
Black, brown, and poor. Black, brown, and poor families matter.
Right. Let's do this, guys. And again, please, please follow
Thank
the
you
work.
again.
Love you, mama. Keep
Love
doing
you
your
too.
thing.
God
I
bless.
appreciate you, man. Keep doing
Thank
your
you for
thing.
everyone watching and following.
All
We are
right.
stronger together.
Yep. Because we about to rattle the cages, y'all. We can't stay in the status quo. We not here to be nice and trying to make besties with politicians, and
Nope.
we just want to hold you guys accountable, because if you guys want to hold us as parents accountable for feeding and clothing our kids before you guys, as some say, kidnapping and removing our kids, we need to, I've always said that we need to file 51As.
We do. Why can't we file 51As on judges? Why can't we file? Why does social workers still have a qualified immunity? What?
School systems. We should be able to file 51As on school systems. Anyone working in the service field, like, we need to talk about that. So maybe we can have another conversation with your squad when whatever. We can have a really good conversation. So with that being said, bye guys.
Bye.